Thousands of people may have contracted the Zika virus before returning to the U.S. That from the CDC Tuesday. With over 500 travel-associated cases already reported in the U.S., the threat and concern over Zika is continuing to grow. CBS News chief medical correspondent Dr. Jon LaPook is here. All right, so Jon, this is one of those moments where I feel like people will hear the word thousands and then automatically rush to some kind of judgment or conclusion about that. Can you just break this down for us? What is the real threat here? When people hear thousands, what is that really referring to?
I love this question because you're right. This is one of those moments where we've been hearing about it for months, and now the mosquito season is upon us almost, and people start to get nervous. And I've seen just today headlines that are a little bit misleading. So the thousands, what is Ann Schuchat talking about? If there are, say, around 500, more than 500 cases that have been documented in the United States, those are cases that have been imported in. Say somebody got sick in Brazil and came here, and maybe a few sexually transmitted. But we know that that 80% of people who have Zika, at least in the past, have no symptoms. So if 500 people had symptoms, and that's how we found them, then you have to multiply that by 5, so that gets around 2,500. So there are the thousands of people. So nothing's changed. It's just that you're putting it in a different framework and saying, well, not just people who have symptoms, but people who have Zika, period. Now, it's also very important to know that that's a total of several thousands of people that we've been measuring from the beginning. Remember that the Zika virus is in the bloodstream only for about a week, maybe a little bit longer. So after that, it should no longer be a threat to anybody, because what the fear is that somebody comes up here from, say, Brazil, they've got Zika in their bloodstream, and then a local mosquito that's not infected already bites that person, and then gets infected, turns around and bites somebody else, and then you would have local transmission.
But what about some people who might say, isn't this also sexually transmitted?
Yeah, so we've now found out that it is sexually transmitted. We don't know exactly what the degree of that is. So there have been cases of men who have sex with men who have transmitted it that way. We have male to female transmission. We found that it's in the semen for at least 62 days in one case, or as long as 62 days in one case. So that's sort of this big asterisk and question mark, because how do you know? I mean, you know, whether somebody got it from a mosquito in the bedroom or from sexual transmission, especially in a place like Brazil where you have so many people. They think over 1 million people have been infected with Zika.
So the bottom line, if I'm hearing you correctly and understanding you correctly, these are not necessarily new numbers. It's just a different way of looking at the number, and a different way of quantifying it.
Exactly. And you know, this is not to say that there's nothing to be afraid of or to be worried about. I think the big concern right now is, as we've been saying for weeks and weeks and weeks, mosquito season is upon us. We have had the luck of having it hit in Latin America at a time of our winter. So we've had all this time to prepare. And yet, despite that, Congress has been asked for funding from the White House at the suggestion of the NIH and the CDC, and yet that funding has not come through yet.
All right, Dr. Jon LaPook, some good information. Thank you for helping us understand the reality of the Zika threat.
Thanks, Elaine.